Hello everyone, welcome back to another lecture regarding monsters throughout time. My name is Carter Neale, and today I will be teaching you about the Monstrorum Historia. The Monstrorum Historia is an encyclopedia created by Ulysses Aldrovandi and was published in 1642, nearly 40 years after his death. This is a catalogue of what he believed to be monsters, but also the accounts of others even if he was unable to prove them himself. I believe that the contents of this book reflect both the fears and the interests of the people of the 17th century. It shows the political and economic struggles of the times through how people perceive those from other lands and those who are born with defects and look different from themselves. These theories are important for historians today so that they may look back and reflect on the lives before their own. They can compare the modern world to that of ancient times to identify how monsters are used in culture and society to explain what is mysterious and different from themselves. There are multiple instances throughout this encyclopedia where what would now be considered today to be deformities was a monster in past times. Aldrovandi was unable to come up with an explanation for these abnormalities, so he referred to them instead as a monster. Such deformities can include conjoined twins. A now scientifically understood occurrence was once a marvel that could only be explained as an otherworldly being. These conjoined twins are grotesquely drawn to be portrayed as monsters far worse than the human beings that they suffer from this condition. A loose translation of Latin to English can be interpreted to say, icon of a two-headed girl. It would appear that Aldrovandi meant to preserve these people as humans, but their conditions as the monster itself by referring to them as boy or girl. However, conjoined twins are not the only disfigurement that was considered to be a monstrous trait. Slight changes in physical appearance were also looked at as abnormal. For example, misshapen eyes or lack of physical features are deemed qualities of monsters. As a reflection of the times of exploration and discovering new lands, any indigenous peoples of the land that was being explored were considered to be different and unequal to those travelers. Although they may not be considered exactly monsters, it is interesting to note that indigenous peoples that have a physical appearance different to Aldrovandi and his peers are included within the Monstrorum Historia. Throughout my search for monsters in Aldrovandi's encyclopedia, I have identified drawings of creatures who are really just humans with slight deformities, but most strange of all are the monsters that are so bizarre that they cannot be explained by human origin. For example, the creature on the right, when translated from Latin to English, is defined as a child with animal heads on their appendages. With my knowledge of how monsters have been used to tell stories, this monster may have been used to warn children and adults of the beasts that they may face if they enter waters or marsh areas. From the look of this monster, it appears that they have webbed feet and a tail, which leads me to believe that it is amphibious. Other creatures of the unknown could be found as I continued my journey through Aldrovandi's work. The first monster, a winged tetrahedron monster with a golden human head, is one of the most bizarre and unexplainable in the catalogue. It seems to be an odd combination of many creatures with wings at its hips and four arms close to its head that has horns protruding from it. The description below mentions that this monster appeared in Hungary and brought death to many of its inhabitants by hurling rocks with its four arms, eventually taking out an entire army. There is a possibility that this monster was used to describe the tragic deaths of the people of Hungary that were caused by war or natural causes. Another is a monster with the head of a fox, dragon, and eagle, with scales on its entire body except for one human arm. This monster has appeared on the banks of the Nile in Egypt. From the description in the Monstrorum, this monster was born due to unholy acts of parents, so God believed they must be punished by giving birth to a horrible monster. This monster is a perfect example of what will occur if one is to trifle with God. It is possibly a message to the people of Egypt to obey the Lord without question. Animals who had not yet been defined or may have had evolutionary mutations giving them a physical appearance different than those that Aldrovandi and his peers were used to appear within the Monstrorum Historia as well. This animal has a very broken translation within the encyclopedia, but appears to be a possible hybrid of two animals together rather than a monster. The idea of hybridization and mutation as a form of monster sheds light on the mentality of people in the 17th century. They are unable to perceive these differences in species as a normal occurrence. There are examples in the 1600s of boar, sheep, horse, and cows that had a select number of their population with a condition similar to the one seen in humans. This is yet another example of how the unusual and abnormal is thought of as a monster rather than just a medical condition. There are numerous examples of animals that have been hybridized with another organism to make a new species. For example, a serpent and a horse, or a dog and a monkey. I find these additions to the Monstrorum Historia very interesting. The people who live near these hybrids fear them, but view them as a normal part of life, even though they are considered to be monsters. From a biological standpoint, it seems as though there is no plausible explanation for the formation of these creatures. This leads me to believe that these organisms might have possibly been a figment of the imagination of those who lived amongst them, and a way to explain how God reacts to unholy nature, even within the animal kingdom. In conclusion, the Monstrorum Historia allows us to take a magnifying glass to past societies to understand how they reacted to fear and the idea of people unlike themselves and the unknown. Ulysses Aldrovandi did an excellent job at preserving society and culture in his lifetime by creating this encyclopedia of his monsters and the monsters of others. In our next lecture, we will be talking about Stephen King and his monsters. We will ask ourselves, how do they relate to real life? Are the monsters the creatures or the humans in the story? How are all of his stories connected to each other? And thank you for attending the lecture today, and I hope you all have a nice weekend.